Welcome to Dimensional, where we discuss the biblical spiritual realms and how they interact with our world today. We hope you enjoy today's show.
Hello everybody, welcome to Dimensional. This is our very first episode.
We're
Nolan
excited.
and yeah, really excited.
Very excited.
So yeah, I'm Isaac.
I have
This is
waited
Nolan.
so long.
What? Oh yeah.
I have waited so long for
Yeah,
this day.
waited a long time for this. So it's exciting to be here finally, and gonna get into it.
We have a very interesting topic. I'm sure many of you, when you saw the title of the episode, it's going to be called The Missing 411. And I'm sure a lot of you guys were kind of scratching your heads like, what is that?
What?
I had a friend of mine call it 411. I was like, that is so unsatisfying. It's
411.
called 411, okay?
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We really kind of want to get into, I think, some technical type stuff of really what the cause might be of 411.
Yeah.
And we're being very mysterious right now. I'm not really talking about what it is, as you can tell.
Of course.
But, you know, with that said, just keep an open mind because we know things are strange that happen.
Yeah.
And especially involving the details of what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. Strange stuff
So-
does happen. So we're gonna be diving into what that is.
So do you want to inform the audience of what 411 kind of is? Just come out
Sure.
and just say it
Yeah.
right now.
So 411 is when people go missing and there's no reason why. You can't find evidence of what happened. Sometimes you can't find the body. If you do find the body, there's no evidence of what happened to the body, why they died,
Right.
or yeah, and it's usually
Just weird,
Yeah.
really weird causes of death. Most of the time, they don't even find the body for
Yeah.
the 411 cases. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. It's a very interesting subject. You can go so many different places,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, with 411 for
Oh, yeah.
sure. And some people might not consider 411 to be paranormal. Personally, I would disagree.
yeah. I understand where they're coming from, but I just don't agree with them. And I know there's
Yeah.
skeptics too. I saw articles on that it was just conspiracy theory, and I kind of sympathize
Guys,
to some degree, but
This is real stuff.
yeah,
These-
strange stuff happens.
Real people. I mean, like, this isn't just like,
Yeah.
Bob down the street said,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, my son,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Like, this
Uh-huh.
is real FBI
Yeah.
documented, cases,
Oh, yeah.
sheriff's office. This is real stuff."
And they oftentimes just close the case because they don't know what happened. There's
It's the
no,
strangest thing.
they're just scratching their heads and can't find
Yeah.
anything.
So, maybe just before we kind of move on, I kind of want to get out there the true definition for paranormal, like what
Yeah.
the definition of paranormal is.
Yeah.
Because I
Good
kind
place
of
to
think,
start.
unfortunately, the word paranormal, I think, has a lot of baggage that
It
comes
does.
with it.
It's got a lot of negative connotations.
Yeah, so like, especially in the Christian community, like if someone just says, "Oh yeah, I've been reading about paranormal," everyone's like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. That's very looked down upon.
yeah, and I don't think that
So-
should be the case.
No, it shouldn't.
Because this is
There's no
actually,
reason for it to be.
this is what the definition is. Paranormal definition: they are events whose existence is beyond the scope of normal scientific understanding.
So it's anything you can't explain
That's
scientifically.
it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, well, there's a lot of things in the Bible that are not explained by science.
Yeah.
The creation of the world. So technically, that would be something that's paranormal. That shouldn't be that shouldn't be seen as a
Yeah.
bad term.
Yeah, that's not. It's a term. It doesn't have to be negative.
Yeah. I just think there's just a lot of unnecessary baggage when it comes to like paranormal investigators, ghost
And-
hunting.
Yeah, and I think that's like they're not. They don't. It doesn't have that negative connotation because people are trying to make it that way. It's just paranormal is oftentimes when paranormal is talked about, it's often the ghost hunters, the aliens, the stuff that people don't normally.
Which, by the way, guys, don't do that.
What?
don't do ghost hunting.
No, don't go ghost
don't
hunting.
do that.
Clarify, do not do that.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, it's a lot of, when you hear the word paranormal, a lot of the stuff that comes to mind is Bigfoot, aliens, stuff like that does somewhat have a negative connotation. And so the word itself has gathered that connotation when it doesn't. Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
It doesn't need to be.
It's such a satisfying word.
It is, yeah.
It was funny. I was watching a documentary. It was the Missing 411. By the way, these are great documentaries. I would really recommend going and watching them if you want to learn more about a guy named David Paulides and the work he's done investigating 411. Yeah. But it was so cool because I had never heard the word 411 until I watched The Hunted from 2019. And it got right to the end of the movie and it faded out and it just had paranormal and it had the definition on a black screen and then it faded. And I was like, that's the way to end the movie. Yeah. And I thought it was so cool. I was like, that's so cool. But yeah, side note. So I think we have a couple points, obviously, that we kind of want to get going here on kind of more the definition of 411 and its origins of like where it comes from. So I was actually thinking about this. 411 cases, like technically, if you kind of think about it, it could be traced back all the way to the beginning of like the fall. Like if you think of when Adam sinned, I mean, they could go back as far, but we just don't have record.
Yeah, we don't have a record of it.
We don't have record, but it could go as far back.
There's nothing to say that that's not been happening.
Right, and I was thinking about it, and there's two cases in the Bible that I just thought were interesting. Don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying this is really what's happening, but the implications would be the same.
Yeah.
So, for instance, Genesis 5 verses 21 to 24, when it's talking about Enoch, how Enoch was taken up into heaven, to those people...
Yeah, it would have been the same situation.
It would have been a 411 case if they knew about that, which we don't know, maybe they did. But
if what happened to Enoch happened now, it would be a 411 case. Yeah. That's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, so he just disappeared. Now, I'm not saying like he's being raptured, but, you know.
We're not saying that's happening, or that's what happened back then.
It's the implications.
It's the implications of what happened.
Yeah, and then I was thinking about kind of like in also 2 Kings 2, 9 through 13 with Elijah. He was taken up in the chariots to the people there. The implications would have been a 411.
For anyone not watching, or anyone they didn't know, that would have been a 411.
Yeah. So I just kind of thought that was interesting, just because, like, technically those would be considered 411 cases.
By our definition, what that is now,
and
what happened then, it would have been the same thing.
So we can trace back 411 cases all the way to the Book of Genesis. I think that's kind of cool.
It is.
Just that you can take it back that far.
Is it the same thing? Who knows? But
yeah, like we don't know the like we're gonna get into that. Like
you can't be dogmatic on what the cause is.
You can't,
because there's no proof. That's the whole point.
There's certain stories that can lend itself to certain causes, but then some are other way. You know, you can't be dogmatic.
There's no solid proof. That's the whole point of what makes it 411.
It's aliens, 100%. All right. So
I don't know.
Moving on. So kind of like where did the term 411 come from is also kind of interesting. So this guy, I would love to shake this guy's hand.
Oh, yeah.
And if you are watching this podcast, please
we'd love to have you on.
We would love to have you here. So this guy's name is David Paulides, and this guy gets all the credit for 411 in my opinion. He has done the homework.
He did it.
He's done all the homework.
He's the one that
did
did
everything. So this guy, he has been everywhere. So on his online biography, Paulides states that he received his undergraduate and graduate degrees from University of San Francisco in 1977. He then began a 20-year career in law enforcement, transferring in 1980 to the San Jose Police Department, working in the patrol division on a SWAT team, street crimes unit, and all kinds of variety of detective divisions. I mean, that...
So in other words, he's been everywhere. He's seen it all.
He knows what he's talking about. This isn't just, I'm going to make a conspiracy theory. Okay, I'm just going to make up an idea and make
millions. It's not just Jim
millions.
Bob from down the road. He's been in all the...
He has credit.
Yeah. There's credibility to his name.
A lot of credibility, and just... He has a lot of experience.
A lot of experience.
Tons of experience. I mean, the things that these kinds of police departments and law enforcement departments deal with is like really heavy stuff.
Oh yeah, it's deep stuff.
Yeah,
he's getting into.
that
yeah.
guy definitely is
Uh-huh.
very credible.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, after he left the police force, Paulides wrote many books on the topics of actually Bigfoot. I didn't know that.
It started with Bigfoot.
I thought that was cool. I
thought
want to
that
get
was
some
neat.
of his books and see what he talks about Bigfoot.
Oh yeah, that'd be really
I didn't
interesting.
know he did that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about him in related to the 411, but
A
I didn't
lot.
yeah, a lot. But I didn't really, until actually diving into research to do this
Yeah.
episode, I hadn't heard about the Bigfoot stuff, and I was like,
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty interesting.
There was an article on Wikipedia that I saw when I was looking at some of his stuff.
Yeah.
And it says like, does Bigfoot have any cause with like missing 411? I don't think it was written by him, but it was just somebody else. But I was like, kind of cool.
Bigfoot's kidnapping
Yeah.
people.
So, obviously that's kind of the origins.
Yeah, that's kind of who he is. He created the 411.
I mean, I think he's researched over thousands of cases that correspond with the 10 profile points, which you'll get into.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
And he's written like 9 books on the missing 411, all kinds of different cases. It's absolutely amazing because
so he actually created the 411 category after he was approached by some park rangers, and they said, hey, we have these cases that are weird, they don't fit in with anything else, and the authorities over that park, whatever, they just shut it down. They're like, no, it's fine, don't look into it, and that kind of concerned them, and so they approached him
and be like, hey, what do you think about this?
And so that's where he started his investigation.
Yeah, that's really cool. But yeah, just he's looked into like thousands of cases, and I think that kind of adds credibility just to the whole idea of 411.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like we're looking at 5 cases.
Yeah, it's not just a handful, it's tons.
I mean, we're talking about thousands of cases, and it's like
all over the place.
Like, if you have to be completely ignorant to say like, oh, it's all like made up. Like, like I don't know, like every conspiracy theory has people and has skeptics.
Oh yeah. You don't have to agree with all of us. That's fine. But you have to acknowledge something weird is happening.
And we'll get into some really strange cases.
Yeah.
Like really strange.
And like there's no way to explain it. So something is happening.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with us, that's fine. We're presenting what we believe.
But these were real people, and they are not here anymore.
Real people with real families and real lives went missing in strange ways.
So
This
so
is
with
also interesting. I don't know how accurate this is because I only found it one place, I think. But they said the term 411 came from an inconspicuous computer term that refers to data that can't be found or a corrupt file.
That is so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I don't know how. I don't know how.
Neat.
Yeah, I don't know how legitimate that is. Whether or not that's the actual connection, but I did find that when I was looking. So
that's actually really cool.
I thought that was pretty awesome.
That's beautiful.
I got that.
Okay, so I mean, with that said, that's kind of the origins of 411 and kind of who started it and all that behind it. So I think the next thing that would really be cool to talk about is just more like what makes up a 411 case. Like, how do we, like, there's a simple thing as a missing persons case.
Yeah,
like, I could go missing for a day. But what makes me like a 411
What qualifies as a 411? So there's roughly 10. I think it's, I don't know.
10?
I didn't count.
I think it's 10.
There's certain criteria that someone has to fall under to be a 411 missing persons case. So there's one of them is mental illness and suicidal thoughts can be ruled out.
Really?
Can be ruled out. So those aren't.
Interesting.
So it's saying those aren't a cause.
You're kidding.
Yeah, because if someone is mentally ill or has suicidal thoughts, then maybe they did something. But if you can,
we're gonna have to circle back around to that. I want to talk about that.
You have to rule that out for it to be a 411.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because people who are having suicidal thoughts, they might go missing. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
If you can rule that out,
But anyway.
And then there's no signs of voluntary disappearance. So you don't see just trails walking off like they're chasing a bunny or whatever.
Right.
It wasn't something voluntary. Then there's no signs of animal predation. So animal didn't attack you. No indication of foul play. Again, no person attacked you. There was no kidnapping, no murder, whatever.
Right.
Unknown cause of death. That's kind of a big one. Whenever the body's found.
If it even is.
If it's whenever it's found, if it's found, then there's oftentimes they'll do autopsy studies, whatever, and there's no reason it died from many times from what they can see. there's often severe weather, usually striking unexpectedly.
We need to talk. That's something that really interested me was the weather events.
Severe weather is often involved.
We'll talk about that.
And that, it doesn't really make sense. Why?
It's like time. Like, it's literally either during or like right after the person.
Either right before. I think it's often either during or after.
It's strange.
Yeah, and that makes it hard to find the person. Because you either can't keep looking or something like that. And then another one's canines either can't find a scent to track the person or refuse to track the person altogether.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, there's canines can't or won't track the person, which is strange.
Yeah.
I mean, we give off scents, whatever.
Right.
Dogs can track the scent of a human, and when they can't find it, or especially, I think it's interesting when they won't, like they refuse to.
Yeah,
that's
strange.
Interesting.
That is strange.
Or when the victim's found, they're found in an area previously searched.
Now
that's a big one.
Weird.
Yeah.
I mean,
you have search parties. They're standing almost arm's length apart.
Yeah.
Just sweeping the entire area, and you search an area for
sometimes dozens of times.
Yeah, dozens of times. Sometimes it's a couple times. Sometimes it's dozens of times, and then randomly they find a boot, or randomly they find the body.
It's so strange.
It's just you've looked numerous times, and then all of a sudden it's right there in the middle of nowhere. Like it's in the middle
open, just boom, just right there.
It's not like they were hiding. Oh, I didn't see it before.
Like under a log.
Yeah,
they're literally just flat
right
out in the open.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a really weird one.
And then clothing or shoes are missing from the victim.
Yeah.
So oftentimes they won't have boots on or gloves, or they'll take their coats off.
Right.
And it doesn't really make sense.
Doesn't
why.
make sense. No.
Yeah. And especially like you're hiking, you take your boots off. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one where he was hiking in, it was a rough mountain terrain. It was all really sharp stones.
Oh, I remember that one.
And he walked miles without boots.
And he walked 8 miles in snow.
Yeah, without boots.
Without boots on.
So that makes absolutely no sense.
And that's just stuff like that doesn't make sense.
So yeah.
And then I think some people try to chalk up the clothing shredding as to hypothermia.
Yeah.
Which can be the case.
It can be.
But but there's people who go missing in places where it's not a cold climate. You're not going to get hypothermia, and they're still shredding their clothes.
Yeah.
Or they appear to be when if they find a body, or sometimes they'll just find the clothes.
Just the clothes. Yeah.
And what's so weird is sometimes the placement of the clothes. There was a case where it's they were folded up perfectly with the boots on top by a log.
Yeah.
And that's
he undressed himself and folded it up, and then just poof, gone.
And he's gone. And that is just
sense.
Strange.
Why would you do that?
And they were found in an area that was previously been searched.
Yeah.
And then just boom, there was just a bunch of clothes right there. And then
you find a little stack of clothes that are folded up all nice.
That's weird. That's weird.
Yeah, and then one's, I think it's just odd. It's water's often in the immediate area of the disappearance. Lakes, creeks, rivers, ponds, streams.
It's a sea monster.
Yeah, but water.
Yeah.
It seems to be common when it's around water, which is also doesn't. I mean, someone could drown, but they'll sweep the bottom of a lake and find nothing.
Right. The case that I'll be talking about later involves a pond. It's right by a pond.
Yeah. And then another one's the victim has a disability or illness of some sort.
That one's interesting.
Yeah. It's there was one where he had a knee injury and he didn't like walking anyway. So it's not like he just wandered off. And you're injured or you're sick.
Yeah, that case was in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yeah.
His name was Melvin, and he disappeared on Elk Mountain in New Mexico. And I think it was so he was meeting some work from some friends from work.
Yeah.
We like to stumble a lot.
Oh yeah.
He was meeting some friends for work for I think it was an overnight camping thing to do some hunting, and they were gonna walk farther up the mountain, and he had that knee injury.
He had a knee surgery recently. Didn't like walking anyway.
His wife said he didn't really walk anyway.
Yeah, he never liked hiking. He had a knee replacement recently.
He's I'm here to hunt. I'm not here to I'm not here to hike.
Yeah, I'll stay close to the vehicles.
Yeah. So he literally points to where he's gonna be. It's 100 yards away. He goes there.
It's a little cluster of trees.
He's gonna hunt, and he disappears. So we'll get into later more kind of what happened, but it's just stuff like that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And then last one is victim disappeared in one of the geological clusters that have been identified. So there's regions, there's clusters of, it's a lot of people go missing in this one area. And
Yeah.
so there's no, from what we can see, there's nothing that defines it as a hotspot, a cluster, but it's a lot of people
Just
go
an
missing.
area.
Yeah, just an area. And so it's not like, well, there's a gang hiding in the woods over here, whatever.
Right,
like,
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
the situation, it's just there's random clusters where people go missing more than others.
What I think is
So-
interesting too about the geographical clusters,
Geographical
that's what's called,
clusters, yeah.
is like if it starts,
Mhm.
one person is identified as a 411 case.
Uh-huh.
Sooner or later, another one will happen.
Mhm.
It's just without a shadow of a doubt, it will.
Mhm.
I mean, it could be years, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
always will
It
happen.
could be 10 years later, but it's
It always
almost the
will.
same spot.
Always will.
Mhm.
Same area, same spot,
Yeah.
same kind of implications.
Yeah, yeah. Same kind of situation.
Like it always just happens again and again and again. And
Yeah.
I just think that's interesting.
It is.
I think Yosemite National Park has, I think, the largest one right now.
Mhm.
It's, I think it's maybe up to 50 to 60.
Mhm.
I think that's weird. And I think a lot of these 411 cases are taking place in state parks.
Yeah, there's a lot
Which
in
is
state parks, which
interesting.
is weird.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of weird, but if
Mhm.
you kind of really think about it, that would be the place like it would happen. It's very deep, woods.
Very secluded.
Secluded, especially
Very-
places like Yosemite.
Yeah.
I mean, there's places that people probably haven't even walked out there.
Yeah.
It's so vast.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
so deep.
Huge, dense
Right.
wilderness,
Yeah.
basically.
And I'm just so unsatisfied when you have people who want to be like, oh, there's some mountain man out there that's living, he's kidnapping people.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I've heard that.
Uh-huh.
I've-
And like, is it possible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it probable? Not
No.
really. No. Yeah.
And we'll kind of get into why.
Yeah.
Because when you really take those profile points and you
Mhm.
apply it to a guy going and kidnapping someone, it doesn't fit.
It
The
doesn't make
canines would
sense.
still be able to track.
Yeah. They'd be
We're
able to track
talking
them.
about professional trackers who do this for a living.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They know what they're doing, and they can't find
It's
it.
not just, oh, buddy has a dog.
Yeah.
Go see if you can find them. It's professionally trained. And then, like, they often have disabilities or illnesses. Some guy in the woods isn't going to, like, pick out the people that are sick.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he would actually probably get the people who aren't
Uh-huh.
sick.
Depending on what he's using
Depending
for,
on, yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
And then why would he leave their clothes?
I don't know. Like and being able to get in and put the clothes there without anybody seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's hundreds.
When stuff's found where
hundreds
they've
of
already
searchers.
searched. Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going
Uh-huh.
on.
Yeah. And if you were kidnapping people, you would want to hide all the evidence.
Yeah, you wouldn't
You
give
wouldn't-
little pieces.
You wouldn't wait for them to search 3 times and then drop stuff.
Right. Well, then there's also the chance too of those clothes you might have left fingerprints or
Yeah, yeah.
scent on the
Uh-huh.
clothes
Or a hair,
Hair.
or-
I mean, there's so many implications.
Uh-huh.
A smart crook wouldn't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I also think.
And one of the big
Go
things
ahead.
is there's no signs of foul play. There's no indication
Yeah.
of that happening.
Right.
So, if someone was kidnapped, there'd be proof. I mean, nobody's going to be like, hey, I'm going to kidnap you. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
not
there's
gonna
going to
wi-
be evidence.
Yeah, that's not like, oh, okay, I'll follow you.
Signs of a struggle.
Yeah, there's no signs of
Um,
struggle. There's no signs of anything.
There's nothing like that.
Mhm. And then when they do find,
Yeah.
if they do find the body, there's no signs of what killed it, how the person died.
Just
So
an unknown cause of death.
if someone kidnapped them and killed them, they would know. They would be able to
Do
see
you know
that.
what's so bad?
What?
Is when they still put a cause of death, even though they don't know the
Yeah,
cause
yeah.
of death. It was hypothermia.
Uh-huh.
It's like,
Yeah.
guys, come on. Like
Uh-huh.
they have to do that.
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
But
Yeah, when they list the cause of death, it's
Yeah.
like easily not.
it's easy.
that, yeah.
It's kind of silly.
A little bit.
It's like just admit when you're wrong. But
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, they don't want to admit if they don't know it, and like I totally understand that.
yeah,
too,
I get it. Yeah.
But to some degree, you're like, it's okay to admit it sometimes.
Well, I mean, as Christians, we
Mhm.
know there's things that are outside of our control.
We know there's
We know there's supernatural things going on.
we know there's a angelic realm.
Now, our U.S. government is
Mhm.
based on Christian principles.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But-
culture's changed.
200 some years, the
Changed.
people, and the people in office aren't Christian.
Right. Yeah.
oftentimes, So
They're not looking at these kinds of
Yeah.
things with a Christian perspective.
they're trying to prove it from a naturalist perspective, a
Right.
materialist view.
And
which-
to be honest,
which-
you would want to hide that because
Yeah.
that disproves a materialist view.
Yeah.
Which
They're
right now,
saying-
evolution is the
when-
biggest thing that's being taught in any school.
And from the evolutionary perspective, if you're saying demons or aliens.
Right.
Or I mean, aliens they kind of can.
Aliens,
but it depends on what it is. If it's seeming like a supernatural thing, a spiritual thing, they try to just overlook it, or it was just whatever.
Right.
Because that's contrary to their worldview. So I understand their perspective.
I understand their perspective.
I understand where they're coming from. I just
it's not right to a certain degree. I know I was telling you about.
It's not a like you kind of know like that's not really, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and it's not right. For instance, if I have a certain belief and you have a certain belief, and I find something that possibly goes against what I believe,
it agrees with
and
me,
you
want
to know about it, and I go no, and I lock myself up in a room and I hide the evidence and I burn it.
Destroy the evidence.
Destroy it. I mean, that's not right.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that's not right.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because I want to try to prove my side of the story so effectively.
Yeah.
That.
So yeah, like they're trying to do, like the government, the police, whoever's investigating, they're trying to solve the problem to the best of their abilities.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're trying to be deceptive. They're trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
They just don't have the biblical perspective of there are other possibilities.
Yeah, then besides just what we see here, physical matter, like there's other things.
It's not like they're just, we're going to tell lies and it's going to be great.
Right,
They're trying to figure out what's going on.
I think some people have the unbalanced perspective of our government, like they just lie just to try to lie about stuff just for the fun of it.
And maybe there are people like that. And maybe there are people in the government like that.
But it's not everybody.
But not everyone's like that.
Not about everything.
Yeah, I think sometimes they are genuinely trying to figure out what's going on. They just can't.
Yeah.
They can't figure it out. And,
right, yeah.
And oftentimes even we can't figure it out, but we have, there are other possibilities that they're not considering because of their worldview. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's like one of those things where you have to have a balanced perspective, because if it's like, okay, well we know our government's not perfect.
Yeah.
But they're not, like doing evering just malicious intent,
it's not as bad as it can be. So, yeah.
I mean, come on guys, Russia, let's
we're not a monarchy. Here. They're not just.
We're not.
Yeah.
What's their government?
Monarchy.
No, like what's it called? It starts with a C.
Communism.
Communism.
I don't think.
Yeah, we're not communists.
I don't think Russia's communist, but we're not.
Sure?
I don't remember. Who knows?
Leave a comment below.
Yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, we're not. They don't just decide what the. They don't always just decide what they do and don't share. Sometimes they do, and sometimes that's okay.
Yeah.
But we don't want to be unnecessarily slamming people.
No.
There's like the police officers that just mark it on, they just close the case, can't figure it out. They're not like, oh, we tried. They actually did try.
They really did try. They just didn't have the right glasses. They didn't have the right glasses to where to be like, oh, okay, this is what's going on.
And even from our perspective, there's a lot of, it could be this. Or it could be that. It's not, because I believe this, I know what it was.
What I think is wrong with what they're doing is something that David Paulides said in one of his documentaries, that he was talking to an FBI agent. Yeah. And the guy said, he goes, David, anything that our government cannot control, they won't acknowledge. And that's true. And, with that being said, if they can't figure something out, well, then they obviously want to hide it.
Yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, we should have the ability to know about that.
You should be able to say, we don't know what it is. We can't explain it. But
maybe you can help us figure it out. Because, I mean, to be honest, I would like to go and talk to some people in the government and be like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about this?
Yeah.
The chances of me doing that are very rare because they probably wouldn't even let me in the building.
Yeah,
but, that's where I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, they should be able to accept it even if they can't explain it.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to do that all the time.
Yeah, we do that too. And
all the time.
There's stuff, it's just, I have no idea.
I mean, really, guys, do we control anything?
No.
As Christians, we don't control anything.
Yeah, there's some stuff we just don't know.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's good. What I think too is just kind of as a side note, like the state parks, they have admitted they have a list.
They have
of
a list.
all of the names and locations of people who have gone missing under strange circumstances. So they're cataloging the data.
They're recording
looking.
It. Yeah.
They're trying to figure it out. And that's like top secret information. We can't see that. And almost as like a citizen of this country, if I'm going to go visit a state park, I kind of would want to see that list.
Yeah.
To see where's somewhere that like a lot of people.
If there's been 5 or 6 people get missing at this one spot, maybe I should go camping there.
You know.
Yeah.
But it costs over $1 million to get that list.
Yeah.
It's like that's just.
We don't have that money.
That's not right.
Yeah.
We don't have that money.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's their stuff. They can decide how much they cost.
Right.
But,
yeah.
But yeah, like I'd like to know if there's been people go missing at my camping
something
spot.
that should be public. You know what I mean? Like that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we don't. I mean, we'll probably get into this at some point on this podcast, but just all of the UFO crash retrievals and cover-ups, which I mean are real stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like kind of what that's about.
Yeah.
And you were telling me last night about that bell, like the time travel. We'll have to talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, that's just kind of interesting stuff. So I think that was all of them, wasn't it?
All the
points. I wanted to talk about the weather event.
Yeah.
So what I think's really interesting is just the fact that like it seems so planned. Like it's literally like someone's writing a computer program for these cases.
Yeah.
And it happens almost the exact same cycle over and over and over. Sometimes there's different implications, but it all kind of ends up
sometimes
the same.
It's different weather.
Yeah.
Sometimes different like severe weather. Sometimes it's snowstorm. Sometimes it's something else. But...
And what I thought was interesting, there was a case where this guy, him and I think his friend, they were doing some hunting and they were just driving in a truck. This deer came out in front of their truck. So he jumps out with his rifle, and as he starts running to chase the deer, just fog just rolls in.
Yeah.
And then he goes missing, and then nobody ever hears from him again.
So it just all of a sudden gets really foggy, and then they never see him again.
Yeah, it's like,
that's weird.
What's up with that?
I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah,
that's weird.
It's strange.
Yeah.
It's just stuff like that.
Yeah. Just doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. The like deer, by the way, that came in front, that wasn't a deer. That was Bigfoot. That was Bigfoot.
Aha, I see. Anyway.
I mean, no wonder he jumped out of his truck. He wanted to shoot the Bigfoot.
I kind of think that Bigfoot's hard to mistake for a deer, but
that's
you know.
True.
Never seen a Bigfoot with antlers.
Wow, that's a crazy picture.
That is a crazy picture.
That would be crazy.
But anyway,
we should have AI generate a picture of Bigfoot with antlers.
Bigfoot with deer antlers. That'd be
deer antlers.
But
and
anyway.
like a deer's tail, like little like white.
Like white tail, yeah. White tail.
We need to stop.
We should stop. But yeah, like that. It's just he jumps out to shoot a deer. It's a perfect situation. You're going deer hunting. You're trying to find deer. Oh look, one just walks right in front of you.
There you go, perfect.
So you get out to shoot it, and all of a sudden, random fog, thick fog, enough that they didn't see him, obviously.
Yeah.
And never found him again.
He was gone. Now the canines obviously didn't pick up a scent, which I think is a really weird one.
Which I don't know. Does fog affect that?
No,
know.
they just don't get a scent. Like it's like they follow his scent to a certain point and it stops.
Just stops. Yeah.
Like
there's oftentimes scent or footprints, whatever. They just go and just stop.
Yeah.
There's no other footprints.
Well,
it's
the
not
one
like
case
something
that took place in New Mexico, the guy, he walks down with a knee injury. His name's Melvin. He walks down to that tree. He stops. When he goes missing, the canines track his scent to that tree,
and it stops.
He's gone. He didn't go anywhere else. He stayed at that tree.
Yeah, the scent stops there.
It's like that's just strange. That's different. I think some people have tried to like chalk it up as maybe just problems with like the canines and the dogs.
Yeah.
But when it's happening thousands of times.
Does that stuff happen? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But is that what happened? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Because that happens numerous times. So when it's a repeated thing, then it's kind of like, okay, something weird's happening. Obviously, flukes happen.
Yeah.
But when you get a repeated situation, then you're...
That's when you kind of have to be like, okay, there might be something on here.
Okay, maybe the scent just stopped.
And then when you have like thousands of the case, at that point you're like, there's something going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. So I think probably what we ought to do is we ought to talk about like some actual cases that like, and kind of like apply the profile points to those cases and kind of like point
discuss
them out.
what profile.
Yeah, so I'm anxious to hear yours.
Okay, yeah.
Because
so
I haven't heard this one.
Yeah. So there was a medical doctor named James McGrogan. He went missing in 2014. So
fairly recent.
Yeah,
I mean,
somewhat recent. He was on a trip for split snowboarding with 3 of his friends. So split snowboarding
I'm going
is
snowboarding next month.
Good luck with that. Yeah, in Vail, Colorado, with 3 of his friends. Split snowboarding isn't very well known, but it's similar to cross-country skiing or hiking in snowshoes.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah.
And so around 8:30 a.m. is when they started the trip and went up. It's a mountainous trail. They're going hiking, whatever. And then around 10 a.m. they stopped to take a break, get a little tired, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And McGrogan was a marathon runner. He was real fit, so he was like, I can keep going. I'll meet you at the next stop.
Oh, right.
Perfect situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the profile points is there's always a point of separation.
Yeah.
And there's always a point of separation.
Oftentimes they go by themselves to do something and never come back.
That's what happens.
Yeah. So he's like, I'll meet you at the next stop.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep going.
Right.
I'm not tired. Never see him again.
Yeah.
But he goes missing. So they thought he just kept going. They thought he just went to the next stop. They kept hiking.
Huh.
And so they thought we'll catch up to him eventually.
Right,
He'll
yeah.
get tired and we'll stop him. So it was, let me see, around 5:30 p.m. after looking for him all day. One of the friends went down the mountain and called the Vail County Department of Public Safety, who called the Eagle County Sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had a search party for 5 days.
Right.
And look there, couldn't find him. Severe weather. They had to stop the search because of severe weather. So it didn't really say what kind of severe weather. I'm guessing snowstorm, probably.
Probably kind of blizzard or something like that. Something
because
bad enough you have to pull out a whole
it
crew.
It was in skis in the snow on the mountain,
Right,
so
yeah.
it could have been something like that's my guess. But yeah, so they looked for 5 days, couldn't find him. How many was it? So they had 3 helicopters searching from above.
Wow.
They covered 18 square miles.
Wow.
Couldn't find him.
Huh.
There was no evidence of anyone leaving or veering from the path. It was a well-trodden path, so it was like you don't just lose the path. It was well packed down.
It's a path.
People went on it often, so you just stick to the path. And there was nothing leaving the path. No ski marks, no footprints, no nothing.
Right.
And because he had his split snowboard on his backpack, it was strapped to his back.
Okay.
So there's no footprints leading away from it.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had to stop because of the weather. Yeah, there was a ton of snow too, so they would have seen his footprints.
Right.
And so they found him 20 days later after he went missing.
So they actually found him?
They found him, yes. They found his body. He was found 20 days after he went missing.
Yeah.
And he was found 4.5 miles from where he went missing. But that's a straight line, 4.5 miles straight. To hike that was like 12 to 16 miles across 2 gullies and over a 12-foot mountain. 12,000 foot mountain.
Wow.
So through 2 gullies and over a giant mountain. So in where they would never expect him. So
right, yeah.
And so he had the equipment to survive. It's fine. He had food, I think. He had a cell phone with a battery backup battery.
Yeah.
For the phone. He had a GPS. He had a shovel. He had medical equipment. And
so he
stuff.
had everything.
Yeah.
Like he was prepared.
He had medical equipment. He had a phone, GPS, everything. And so he was found at the bottom of a frozen waterfall.
Huh.
And his skull was crushed, like he had fallen.
Really?
There was severe head injury, trauma at the left side of his chest, a broken femur, and some small animal predation. So
right, from sitting there.
From sitting there, yeah, which would be normal.
Makes sense.
If a guy's dead there for numerous days, animals are gonna find him. But yeah, so he had the equipment. When they found him,
that's crazy.
They tried to turn on his phone. It turned on. There was battery. He had battery. He had life to his phone, and he had service.
Really?
Yes.
So he could have called for help.
He could have called. He had service, and at the top of the mountain, that would have been better service.
That would have been even
better service up there.
Right.
So
yeah.
he could have called. He didn't.
Huh.
He had a GPS. He had medical equipment.
He had everything.
He had a shovel.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was wearing a helmet too, and his skull was crushed.
It was still crushed.
Yeah. So They didn't see the helmet. Like I never saw pictures of it.
That would be interesting to know whether or not it was just the skull or the helmet as well.
They did say the helmet was too damaged to use again, so they just junked it.
Yeah. That's strange.
Yeah. So he was found. Yeah, he was found 20 days later.
Just in that condition.
He was in a really weird position. So it wasn't like he was just laying, or he
like the
huddled
fetal
up in a
position.
ball
Yeah.
and froze. He looked
Like he had just been dropped.
could have been dropped. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was the Booth Creek Falls is where they found him.
Huh.
That's the name of the waterfall, and it'd been searched before.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
And so,
interesting.
let's see. I think I have.
I mean, the fact that
Yeah.
they searched there,
Mhm.
and then it looks like someone came along later and just, dropped him right there for them
Yeah.
to find later, because usually what happens is they'll do one sweep of an area,
Mhm.
and then if they don't find anything, they'll just do it again.
Yeah.
And then they might look other places, and then they'll do it again. And to be honest, if you talk to any kind of like searchers and stuff, they all know that most of the time, once you've done it once or twice, you're done
Yeah.
in that area.
And they search dense. It's not like, oh, me and then 50 yards down
Yeah.
another guy.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
it's
you
arm
see
lengths.
lines of
You're
people.
walking.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he was, he wasn't wearing boots or gloves.
Huh.
Again,
Again.
removing clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had found his boots somewhere else. I think it
Hmm.
was closer to where he went missing. They found his split snowboard after they found him. There was 2 hikers that found his body. The 20 days after he went
Right,
missing.
yeah.
He was found wearing black leggings, a shirt, an undershirt, gray socks, no coat, no gloves, and no boots.
Wow.
So
What I think is interesting is the fact that his boots were found close to where he went missing.
I don't remember exactly about that, but I know they
Okay,
found the
but
boots.
pretty close. Like if you were having to hike and walk, if you were actually
Yeah.
walking, like
Mhm.
you're doing all that with no shoes on, like
Yeah. Even if he wore shoes, it was just like
it would have been hard.
12 to 16-mile hike.
Yeah, all up in the mountains, and
And
this
he
isn't
had-
just walking in a field. This
Yeah,
is
and
treacherous
it's not
climbing.
like he just got lost and was trying to find his trail back. He had his phone.
No.
He had a GPS.
Yeah.
He knew where he was. So
That's
he was
so strange.
his coat, GPS, and phone were in his backpack. So for some reason he put his coat in his backpack, which
Huh.
doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense.
And then his phone was still working. Yeah, so they found him wearing little clothes, like he took clothes off.
Right.
He was wounded. His head was crushed.
Very wounded.
He was at the bottom of the waterfall, nowhere near where they were thinking he would be.
And even just the statistics
Yeah.
of showing the time
So,
frame of
yeah.
getting from here to there,
Uh-huh.
that really wouldn't have made any sense.
Yeah, and so it would have taken him like 12 to 16 miles to get there, to walk there, but it was like if you're from an aerial view, it's like 4.5 miles.
Right.
So the helicopters searching 18 square miles would have seen him.
Yeah.
There was 3 helicopters that searched 18 square miles. Would have seen him.
Yeah.
He was just
Yeah.
laying there. It wasn't like
It wasn't
he was
like he was
hiding.
like hiding like underneath stuff. Like he
Uh-huh.
was just out in the open. And I
Yep.
think that's one of the more subtle things about 411.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes how obvious
how
things are.
obvious they're found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, like almost sticking your tongue out. It's gonna be like, ha ha ha
Yeah,
ha.
it's
like,
almost like they're
right,
mocking
you're
them.
so dumb,
Mhm. Yeah.
But that's a really interesting case. You said that took place in 2014.
2014.
Wow. Yeah, and that's
And
just
he
one.
had a wife. I believe he had kids too. So
Yeah, I mean,
He's another person. It's not
Yeah.
like
this isn't just a
it's
made-up
ki-
story.
When you're reading stories, it's kind of easy to not think of them as people.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they're,
oh yeah.
they're people with families.
Right.
He had a wife. I think he had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they never had a father again. She never had.
And
her
just think
husband
about
was
that,
gone.
the implications that it had on that particular family, of just
Mhm.
knowing like you'll never know what happened to him.
Yeah, that would
And
kind of drive you crazy.
It would,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, to really kind of think the implications of that through
Mm-hmm.
is kind of is very sad.
Yeah.
Of knowing you'll never know, and
Mhm.
then you have people talking about conspiracy theories and
Yeah,
maybe what
yeah.
could have happened.
That would be difficult.
It would be
on
difficult.
The family.
It would
Yeah.
it would be very difficult.
Mhm.
So yeah, for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
so there definitely was quite a few of the profile points brought
Yeah.
up in that case.
Uh-huh. There was, he was a
Point of
medical doctor,
separation.
so, and like the mental illness stuff, that wasn't a deal.
No, yeah.
There is no signs of voluntary disappearance.
Right.
There was no leaving of the trail that they could
Right.
find. There was signs of ammo predation, but that was after he had died.
Right.
So it's not like
scavengers.
it's not like it looks like an animal attacked him. It was
Yeah.
he died. Excuse me, an animal found him.
Yeah.
So there was that. There was unknown cause of death.
Mhm.
We don't know how his skull got crushed, how his femur was broken, and
Mhm.
There was.
Which is sometimes what's mysterious about all of that is there really isn't
trauma
like
stress on his chest.
Yeah.
Something looks like something beat him up real bad. Severe weather. After 5 days of searching, they had to call it off because of severe weather. Striking unexpectedly. There was canines couldn't track him. I think so.
Yeah.
Victim is found in an area previously searched. That's one of them.
That's one of the biggest ones, I think.
That's one of the weirdest ones.
Yeah. I know for sure we'll probably start talking about poltergeist.
Poltergeist.
Yeah, poltergeist activity. Possible, that being a possibility with this kind of stuff, which I'm kind of excited to get into that because that's kind of interesting. So, yeah, kind of moving on here.
And then, real quick, clothing, shoes missing.
Yeah. Another
Near water,
one.
He was found in a frozen waterfall.
And another one, wow.
Yeah.
That's like over
illness,
at least 6.
I don't think he falls under the disability or illness though. He was healthy.
He was a healthy guy.
He was fine. Yeah. And then, so he hit most of the criteria.
A lot of them.
There was a couple he didn't. He hit most of the criteria.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So so the case that I have takes place on November 15th of 2015 in northeast New York, in like a small town of like Horcon, and it's a small town. It has like 1,300 residents. It actually reminds me of my hometown, Knightstown. Knightstown has a little more population, but it's just a really small town. Everyone kind of knows each other. Yeah. It's the classic Andy Griffith Show Mayberry.
Yeah.
Just a very small place.
Small town.
This guy, Thomas Messick, was like a retired military. He was a veteran. He was an outdoorsman. Their family, like their tradition was they would go camping all the time. He had 3 sons.
Yep. One of the big things is they're always experienced outdoorsmen. Outdoors is their life. Like they know what they're doing. So it's hunters, people like that.
Right.
People that are outdoorsmen. It's not like, some city guy went missing in the woods. That kind of makes sense.
These are experienced people. I mean, this guy, he's 82 years old. He's been doing this his entire life. He's not, a 20-year-old, just guy from
20-year-old city kid,
walking out in the woods.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that he couldn't survive.
It makes
he wouldn't know how.
But I mean, these people most of the times have firearms. They have weapons. They have survival gear.
Sometimes
they have flare
guns.
They have everything to get a message out saying, "Hey, I need help."
Yeah.
But they just don't use them, or they don't find the person. So anyway, this guy, Thomas Messick, I would describe him as like the grandpa of the town.
Yeah.
He's the guy that like all the young guys would go to. He helped so many people get like their hunting licenses.
Like the nice grandpa kind of,
teaching them how to hunt, fish, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
He was just a really good, like really nice guy. He did fall into the category of disability or illness. He had gunpowder that blew up in his face during military time. So
I forgot about that.
He could kind of see out of his eye.
His one eye was
shut. It would shut.
Blind.
Like you could open it up and he could kind of see.
Yeah.
But he was
classified as blind. Yeah.
He wasn't really good at hearing. He needed hearing aids. But with that said, he was in good health though. Very good health for being 82.
I mean, he had illnesses, but he wasn't like crippled old grandpa.
He was outside.
He was still an outdoorsman at 82.
I mean, they would go hunting all the time. So him and his sons and his friends and their sons had this camp that they built. And
if I'm right, there were 6 total?
There were 7 people.
7, okay.
And they would go there, like, depending on whenever people were able to, they would go to this camp, they would hunt, fish, all that great outdoorsy type stuff. Well, plans changed on November 15th at around 12 to 1 p.m. Now, if you're an experienced outdoorsman and a hunter, you know that if you're going to go hunting at 1 p.m., that's very late in the day. And the possibility of really finding anything really is very slim.
Not very high
possibility. It's usually morning or towards the evening time when things really are
dusk and dawn
are hyped up.
Yeah.
So this was kind of a last minute thing, which kind of interests me a little bit.
Yeah,
it was
a
kind of
decision.
just like, hey, let's just go have some fun.
Yeah. And let's just go see if we can catch it.
This was somewhere that almost all of the people, except for 2, I believe, had never hunted before.
It was a new hunting ground for them.
It was very near where they were, though. It was a 12-minute drive down a very rocky road to a dead-end parking by a pond called Lily Pond. Yeah, called Lily Pond, and that road's called Lily Pond Road. So it's about a 12-minute drive. So they get there, they pull up, they all get out, and this is kind of a classic hunting strategy. The older men walked down the road where they had parked on. They spread out about 100 yards apart, go in 30 to 40 yards at the most into the woods, and just sit
wait.
down. It's called watchers. And then the younger ones would hike up about a mile, half a mile to a mile up the ridge, and then start pushing anything that is in that area between towards the watchers.
So kind of just scaring animals towards the older guys with the guns. Yeah.
So they all had weapons. They all had walkie-talkies.
Yep.
Again, this was supposed to be a really quick thing.
Yeah, just go see if we could catch
Their fathers and sons just hanging out. Yeah. They all know each other. There's no family grudges or anything going on here. These are just really good, good people.
It's not like you're going hunting with strangers.
Yeah, like we don't know who this is. So we know that he was wearing a cap, a rather heavy coat. He had his rifle, 4 to 5 bullets, and snacks, and all that stuff. So he's sitting on a rock. They actually know the exact location where he was sitting at. Yeah, they know exactly
where he was.
He's sitting on a rock, and he's waiting for anything that he's going to see to possibly to shoot that his son and the others are pushing towards them. And that's when he goes missing. Yeah. So the hunt lasted only about 2 hours. One thing that I thought that they said was interesting was the woods was devoid of wildlife.
Yeah.
There was absolutely nothing, no sounds, no deer, no squirrels.
Didn't see any wildlife while they're out there.
What does that remind you of? Predators. Everyone know. I mean, in every movie, when you're in the woods and it gets quiet, that means something bad's about to happen.
There's something
Everyone knows that,
or whatever.
especially like in the Amazon, if everything gets quiet, there's a predator in the woods. So I was kind of thinking about, I was like, well, what if it was kind of like that?
They're hiding.
Similar to that.
They're hiding from a predator.
Yeah, like
in this case,
it wasn't an animal. Yeah.
There was no. It's not like a bear attacked them, or I don't know what they have in New York.
We'll get to that. It's just strange. So everyone gets to the trucks, and of course Thomas is the only one that's not there.
He doesn't
show
up.
From the trucks, there were 4 of the older men. That was literally only 400 yards away. 30 yards than we were supposed to be. This is not like a big area.
Yeah, it's not like he's miles away.
It's not miles away. He's literally 400 yards away. And they're just calling on the walkie-talkies. They all had walkie-talkies on the same channel. They're not getting any response. Nothing came through during anything. Like him saying, help, help, help. There was nothing going on. And so they basically walked the 400 yards down, 30 yards in, and they get to where he was, and he's not there.
They found the rock he was planning to sit on. Nothing.
There's nothing there. So with that being said, that's it. That's it. They didn't find anything. They brought in so many different people. I mean, there were hundreds of searchers at one point there. They had infrared helicopters looking for this guy.
Yeah.
And
like, you're gonna see him with infrared. Yeah. You just don't. Yeah.
You would at least find the body.
Yeah.
Plus, a big thing is usually the first thing that they find is actually the firearm.
Yeah.
Is because that's something that just doesn't blow away.
Yeah.
Especially a rifle.
Yeah.
I mean,
if something happened, say someone was trying to kidnap him, someone was trying to attack him.
Yeah.
You're running away. You're gonna put down the heavy stuff.
And the gun would be the first thing.
Gun would be the first thing. Or use it. There was no gunshots while they're waiting. It's not like, oh, I don't know why. Do they have bears? I don't know. Something's trying to attack him.
I don't know what they have out there.
And so he tried to shoot back. There was no gunfire.
There was no signs of any kind of animal attack.
There was no struggle.
No blood, no nothing. The canines tracked a scent to the rock, and that's where they tracked the scent to. You know, they couldn't pick up a scent.
Didn't they, at the rock, didn't he have like a candy, like a snack bar wrapper?
He had a snack. He had it, but they didn't find the wrapper.
I thought I thought they found the wrapper because his wife said he would never leave.
I just watched it, and he said like they didn't find it. She said like he wouldn't leave a wrapper, but they didn't even find that.
They didn't even find that.
They didn't find anything.
It's like something's trying to get you. You're trying to run.
You're gonna be eating
a snack.
Stuff.
You're not gonna take that with you.
He's like, one more bite.
Yeah. You're just gonna run.
You're gonna run.
So they didn't even find.
Then there would be signs of running, and then then the canines would track the scent, and then all of that good stuff. So, but they didn't find that. So the search started on the 16th. Nothing was found.
When did he go missing?
He went on the 15th. So the next day they started the search. So I think the next point that I think is kind of interesting, something that came up in this case, is first of all, to explain something, the FBI, according to their protocol, they don't investigate missing persons cases.
Yeah, they don't deal with that.
Especially adults. They have some jurisdiction over children, missing children, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
But on like the 4th or 5th day of the search, 2 FBI agents, they just show up and they start monitoring and basically overseeing
overseeing the search.
Yeah, and they start asking questions. Like, they talk to the wife, they talk to some of the family members. And it was kind of weird. The wife said they just showed up and said, like, all they really said was, like, we just want to inform you that, like, he's now considered a missing person. And it's like, okay, well, we know.
They're kind of like, well, we know he's missing.
Why are you there? You know, like, why are you here? Like,
they never really said what they were there for.
That's not their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And they basically are taking notes and monitoring things. Now, what's interesting is those notes that they send into, they go to a place in Virginia for analysis. And what they do there is they try to find cases that are similar to this one. So what I think is interesting is they saw something in that case.
They saw something unique.
Potential?
Yeah.
Or something?
They saw. Yeah, there was something there that they saw that they wanted to investigate. Whether it was similarities to others or.
They're cataloging something.
Yeah, they're cataloging something.
Which it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the government and kind of all of that. And just that,
like, they're trying to figure stuff out.
You know, but I kind of think to a certain degree they're kind of going about it the wrong way.
Maybe.
And the implications of their work and what they're doing, I think, is kind of a little off, depending on, like, what they're looking into.
Yeah.
But I just think it's interesting that they were there. They showed up, all for this guy, this 80-year-old guy, which he was a real guy.
Yeah.
But for the FBI to be there is just strange.
That's odd for the FBI.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But to really kind of end it, they never found anything. They dragged the pond.
Yeah.
There's a profile point. There was a weather event. It was pouring down rain like the second day after he went missing. And that can cause canines to have a harder time tracking.
The scent, and wash the scent.
They never found anything. So this guy, he was a real guy. He had a family.
No indication
he had
of animal predation.
Yeah, none of that. He was gone. And
he was there with his 3 sons.
Yeah.
He had a family. He was.
Yeah. But I think
and there's nothing to make us think it could have been family or someone that was there. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
There's nothing that would make us think, well, maybe it was a friend, or maybe it was a son, or like there was no tension. There was nothing that would make that a possibility. That would make that plausible.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting too, because one of the friends said he heard a sound.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like.
Hey, he heard a weird sound in the woods. But it was like the opposite direction.
It was like coming from where the younger people would have been, pushing it towards the nose. Said it was about 100 yards away. Yeah. And it was like he said it was
something he'd never heard before.
Just something that shouldn't be in the woods.
Yeah.
Like he told his son later that it almost sounded like the sound of like a giant trap like shutting.
Yeah.
Like just a snapping sound, which I think is kind of weird.
Yeah. It shouldn't be out there.
It shouldn't be there.
It's not like one of the sons got in a bear trap and that's what he heard. It was just heard the sound. So whether that's connected at all, we don't know.
The only thing I would want to know is if anyone else heard the sound, because I would have to look at that, because he was the only one.
I was gonna say he was the only one that heard it. Aren't some of them not alive anymore?
One of them I'm for sure died in 2016. Okay. I'm not sure about the other one. And I don't know. Maybe by this point, because that was in 2015 when this happened, so it's been roughly around like 8 years. Yeah. With that said, it's just kind of interesting. Yeah,
just an interesting side
Interesting case. Yeah. It was a very weird case.
Yeah. He just up and gone.
And just something about it though. It was a last minute thing. Yeah. Late in the day.
Where they've never been before.
A lot of them hadn't been before.
Yeah, a lot of them hadn't been before.
And just the close proximity of where it took place was so close. I mean, we're talking yards. Yeah. And it's just like that it all happened and no one heard a thing. And he's gone. That's just strange to me. Just the whole situation just was strange. Like, I almost kind of wonder what made them want to go and hunt that late in the day. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, really, like, what it all kind of, how it all worked. Yeah, what led up to it.
I mean, like, to some degree, it's like, oh, we're just hanging out. We finish what we're talking about or game or whatever, and it's like, hey, let's do something. Let's go see if we can find a deer, see if we can find a rabbit or whatever, see if we can find something to shoot and cook for dinner and something, but I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely, too, we'll talk about later about the predator thing. Because there's a case that when we get into talking about the possible cause of 411. There's an interesting case that kind of takes place with like the predator kind of stuff of just things getting really quiet, and is it a possibility that it has to do something with that? Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another case that I think is pretty interesting. So
yeah.
So obviously now we have to get into the very, very crazy question of what's the cause of 411.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, there's so many different places you could go with this. Like, just to touch it is just kind of like...
Yeah. Just to clarify, we don't know. We can't say for sure what's happening. So, it's not like we have the answers. There's some things that could be happening, and we don't...
Even though without a shadow of a doubt, it was Bigfoot. But I was thinking, like, we ought to just maybe throw some ideas out there. So, like, do you have any kind of like thoughts, like, concerning maybe possible causes, or just something interesting to kind of talk about?
Some of it could fit with UFO stuff, abductions.
Yeah.
Because, like, the one guy I talked about, he looked like he could have been dropped. He was in like a mangled position, and
there's
died,
UFO
obviously.
Abduction cases of people being dropped.
There's accounts of people getting abducted and they're dropped from the UFO.
Rude.
Yeah,
it's just
kind of rude. Yeah, I mean, whatever. But yeah, like it kind of fits, and things like he's on the trail, and there's no evidence of anybody leaving the trail. There's no. How'd he get that many miles away?
Yeah,
like he was straight distance 4.5 miles away. To walk, that would have been like 12 to 16 miles. How would he have got there?
Well, like a lot of times
without leaving the path.
The way the trail ends is they're just walking and boom, it's like they were picked up.
Yeah.
Then a claw machine. It's a giant claw machine. Candy. We're the pieces of candy.
Yeah. I'm not so sure about that, but whatever. Yeah, like he was on the trail, and it seems like he was dropped. Could it have been that? Maybe. Was it? Who knows? I can't say it was, can't say it wasn't, but it's a possibility. So, I mean,
who knows?
And yeah, numerous of these, maybe something natural did just happen, and we don't know what happened.
Right, yeah.
But could other things be happening? Very possibly.
And I think especially you can diagnose it down to especially certain cases that just are like, it's out and out, just flat out.
Bizarre.
It's weird. Like, just, you don't know. I mean, there's one of like a 2-year-old kid who they were on a camping trip.
Yeah.
And the parents literally turn around, they turn back, and he's gone. And he's like gone.
Just gone.
And they don't ever find anything. And it's just like something like that is just, I think, more leans toward something weird.
Yeah. Or like the one we talked about earlier, that there was this 2-year-old boy, and he...
What's up with 2-year-old boys?
I don't know. I don't know. It's not as often.
No, little children
aren't nearly as often
common.
Yeah,
but they happen.
They happen. Yeah.
And I even think when those take place, first of all, it's a lot more sadder.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's a lot more stranger if they do find the body.
Yeah.
And the location it's found out. It's found miles away.
Yeah. Yeah. Like this.
How is a 2-year-old kid? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
so he was playing outside. He had a jacket on. It was snowing. So it was cold. He had a jacket on, so he wasn't too bad, but he wasn't dressed to be out there for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they don't find him. He goes missing. So they follow his footprints. They follow him, and it goes for a little while. They just stop. Nothing. Footprints stop. And there's no other footprints of other people coming up to him. No animals coming up to him. Nothing. And so they search. And 19 hours later, I believe, they find him. 15 miles away, face down on a frozen pond, and he's alive, without his jacket. And when they asked what happened or why'd you leave, he couldn't remember any of it. Yeah. So, how did he survive 19 hours without a jacket, and
let alone get that far?
15 miles away, end up 15 miles away without leaving a footprint?
Yeah, it's just strange.
It's just strange. Yeah.
And there's multiple cases like that, but I really think, especially since he's just 2.
Yeah, he's 2.
I mean, it would almost be impossible for a grown man to have gotten that far.
It'd be very unlikely for a person to do that.
Let alone a 2-year-old.
For an adult to do that, let alone a 2-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange.
That's crazy. So there's obviously a possibility of UFO activity.
Mm-hmm.
There are actually, a matter of fact, 411 cases that involve UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there were like a UFO was seen kind of either before or after the person goes missing,
Yeah.
and so then some people have tried to link it to missing things. I want to bring up this is not in the show notes.
Okay.
This is awesome. Well, it's not awesome. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Triangle UFOs are something that's newer.
It's more
the past 20
it's more
years.
Recent. Uh-huh.
They've kind of gotten a lot more out there.
Yeah.
And usually
They've
it's
been
a
a lot more
classic.
common
We'll have a
recently.
picture pop up right now of a classic just triangle UFO. There's usually like the lights and like corners at the corners as well. So the triangle UFO is kind of new, but what I think is interesting is there was a specific area, I can't remember where it was. If you want to learn, go on Amazon and watch The Missing 411, the UFO Connection. They talk about this, but there was 3 missing 411 cases. One of them was a little kid, and the other 2, one was a guy went missing. The third one, actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't a missing persons case. It was a UFO sighting of a triangle UFO. Well, on a map, when you line up the 3 locations, it's a triangle.
Perfect triangle.
I mean, it's like, come on, that's crazy.
Yeah. Wasn't it like perfect triangle too? Like
it was. It's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Like
it's not like
triangle.
a funky looking. You connected 3 points. It's a triangle.
It's a triangle. And I feel like triangles sometimes pop up sometimes in like UFOs and just weird stuff.
Yeah.
What that means, I don't know. But I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
That there was a triangle UFO sighting and it corresponds and lines up as a triangle.
With 2 other missing people.
And I think one time we were talking, you ought to like get on a map and like try to like find other triangles
Find
of
where
like
people go
locations
missing
and see if they make a triangle.
See where abductions happen or whatever. See if
Be
there's a pattern. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But moving on, I think me and you would definitely wanted to start talking about poltergeist activity. Can you say that for me?
Poltergeist.
Wait, what?
Poltergeist. Is that how you say it?
Geist.
Yeah.
Poltergeist. That sounds weird. Poltergeist. I was saying it so good this morning and I messed up.
Poltergeist activity.
Poltergeist activity. So I think we wanted to talk about that. So why don't you kind of explain kind of what that is?
So it kind of came up last night when we were really talking about it. At least first time I thought about it. And poltergeist activity is when there's objects moving around or doors shutting or lights flickering, stuff like that.
It's this.
Yeah.
Except I didn't.
But he didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's like nice. Yeah, it's when stuff moves on its own accord, seemingly.
Yeah.
When it's associated with ghosts and stuff like that. There's ghosts moving things or whatever. It's when physical objects are moved or manipulated by non-physical things.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird. So there's accounts of there was this guy when he was a kid that there was a vase, and every morning he'd wake up in a different place in the room. It was just don't know why.
Yeah.
And that was all it ever was. It never got worse. Like oftentimes it starts innocent.
Yeah.
Innocent to some whatever.
It's almost funny sometimes.
Yeah, it starts out kind of funny, like mischievous, just playing jokes, and then it just gets worse and worse until
it's like starting to turn more violent and just more.
And then it's like this has to stop, whether we move or something happens. But for him, it wasn't that way. So it's just strange stuff that moves around. It
gets moved, and I think sometimes too, like there's like cases. We'll definitely do a podcast episode on Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah. But poltergeist. I've been pronouncing it so wrong for so long. It's so hard. Okay, so anyway, we'll just call it the thing. So whenever the thing takes place, especially on Skinwalker Ranch. I'm jealous.
It's not that hard to say.
I don't know. Like I've been saying poltergeist. Poltergeist.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sound. It doesn't feel right.
Okay. Keep going. Sorry. Continue with your story.
Okay, anyway, when the thing happened most of the time on Skinwalker Ranch, like people, like for instance, the wife of the husband who lived there, she was putting away the groceries.
There, but
What?
Continue.
What?
I said she also lived there. You said the wife of the guy that lived there. Just to
Also
clarify, they were living together.
She also lived there too.
But yeah,
anyway,
they weren't separated.
She was putting away the groceries, and she gets them all put away. She walks out of the room. She comes back. The groceries are back on the table inside the grocery bags. So to be honest, that's kind of funny.
That's just kind of
That's
like
just kind of funny. But then
and
eventually,
it was like a minute or less. It wasn't
like it wasn't long enough for the kids to go over there like,
it's not like she was just gone for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
She went in, did something real quick, and came back, and they're all that way.
Right. It's kind of funny.
It is a little bit.
Like it eventually started to get more violent, where then a cow would go missing, and then poof, the cow would be found like way over here, broken legs.
Very
blah, blah,
other
blah, blah.
corner of the like 500 acre.
So
ranch.
is this happening to people? Like, is this kind of activity with people? Like, we just pick this guy up and throw him over here. You know, like, I don't know. Like, it's interesting to kind of think about because it's almost the same thing.
It kind of fits the description.
Yeah.
Whether it is or not, we don't know.
And, like, I think, too, when we're talking about poltergeist activity, where's that coming from? Like, what's behind that?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we can say, okay, we have 411, okay, now we have this. What's the cause?
Like, there's poltergeist activity. What's causing it?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
is it
definitely
ghosts?
Something more demonic.
Is it demonic?
Although ghosts are involved too,
Yeah.
which I don't want to get too much into our
we'll do an episode
topic on ghosts.
Yeah.
I would like for that to be the third episode.
Okay.
I really want to get
That'd
into
be
that.
fun, yeah.
But it's definitely not good.
No.
It's not something like angelic
no.
or anything like that.
It almost seems more demonic just because it does progress and get worse.
Right, yeah.
So is it, say a ghost is moving things and a demon latches onto that? They're like, hey, opening. So then they take it further and further. Or is it just demons doing stuff?
We won't really know. I mean,
either way is possible.
I would definitely leave the door open for both. Although when it kind of progresses, like you said, I do think it's demonic.
That part's demonic. Whether it started that way or not, who knows?
Who knows? I like, to be honest, okay, we'll get definitely into ghosts at some point, but I think ghosts, they're very limited in what they can do.
Yeah.
So like the vase, that's all it can do.
Could that be
Could a demon have picked that up? And then broke the vase.
Yeah.
And then
say, could a demon have done exactly that? Just move it and that's it. It could have.
It could have. Yeah, it really could have.
But is it?
Sometimes I feel like though, demons they have a purpose.
Yeah, there's a purpose to everything.
Like a ghost, I think is just kind of just doing things just to do them. Like for instance, to be honest, if I am. Man, I really don't want to get into this right now because this isn't the ghost episode.
Ghosts are a big topic. That would be a fun topic, but we'll get into that soon.
We'll get into that. So I'll just kind of put a little bit of the icing on the cake here, and barely touch this. But let's say I'm an unbeliever, and I die, it would be fun.
You're waiting for
to
judgment.
Be able to be in that spiritual kind of form to a certain degree where you can kind of do whatever you want.
You're waiting for judgment.
Yeah, you're waiting for judgment. But like, think about that. Like, you're just kind of doing things.
You're kind of just like pranking.
Yeah, like I could definitely see that as being some of the reasons for some of this kind of mischievous almost.
It's almost like I'm gonna be judged and I know it, but I'm just waiting.
Have almost the way people treat our life now. You know, marry. Let's be jolly and happy for tomorrow we die.
Yeah. I'm bored. Let's do something else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's go move Isaac's vase in his room. I don't know.
Lucky me, I don't have a vase in my room.
You don't have a vase. That's good. Was it a guy who had a vase in his room?
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of a vase it was.
I don't know. Did he have flowers in it?
I don't know. Maybe his girlfriend brought him flowers. I
don't know. That was like before his girlfriend, I think.
Okay. So you said he was like young.
I mean, I think. He was there. Like, I think he lived there until he got married, but I think he was talking about when he was like younger.
Right.
But I mean, like 12, 13, somewhere around there. But yeah.
Anyway, I think demons, they possibly can latch onto that. Yeah. And have more of an intent behind it, and being like, oh, okay, this is going to progress. This is going to get more violent to create this outcome. Yeah. So, yeah.
Whether it's actually harming the person or just inducing fear.
Which we know that demons can hurt people.
To some degree, yeah.
To whatever God allows.
Yeah, to the extent
that
that God allows.
Because ultimately everything's under the ultimate control and authority of God.
Okay.
We see that in the book of Job when Satan afflicts a lot of things with Job.
But it has to be through God.
Right, yeah. But I do think they definitely have more of an intent. And we know, to be honest, the intent is to destroy the things that God loves. Yeah. And
to lead
humans happen to be what God loves the most.
Yeah,
so,
to lead people astray.
Right.
They love that. So, however they do that, that's their goal.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, they don't just do stuff randomly. They don't do stuff just to do it. They do stuff with an end goal. It's a plan.
Right, yeah.
And yeah, since Christ died, he defeated Satan. Like, it's not. He knows he's beat. He knows he lost.
Right. Yeah.
But
he's gonna try everything.
He still tries to do as much as he can to, even if he knows he can't. Even if he knows he can't get someone unsaved, or like they can't lose their salvation, but to make them go astray as far as possible, or the unbelievers, to keep them from the faith, to keep them from hearing, to keep them from accepting.
Well, I think that's what happens with a lot of people who are involved in a lot of the paranormal investigation. I look at these people all the time and I'm like, you guys are so close, but yet so far away.
Yeah.
They already admit that there's such thing as a supernatural.
Yeah.
But they're not ready to admit that there's God and that they are going to be under judgment at some point.
Yeah.
So in getting them to that point, it's actually very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous to be at that state.
Yeah.
Of being able to admit, there's a spiritual realm, but not even to even consider the idea that there's a God.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's odd.
Yeah, and it is effective from the demonic perspective, because with a lot of this stuff, you lead people down the rabbit hole in the deep end. They're drawn. Their entire life is now about finding that another ghost, finding the Bigfoot, or figuring out what this is, why people are going missing. So it's easy to get drawn in, and you're searching for the spiritual realm apart from Christ. That's very dangerous. So
you are so vulnerable. You don't have any kind of protection.
No protection at all.
In Christ at all. You are literally opening yourself up to the things of spiritual, evil, demonic things. And the verse Ephesians 6 tells us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And darkness in heaven and high places. So we know that's going on. And this is how it looks sometimes. Not all the time.
Not all the time.
But it does happen. And I just think for those kinds of people who are involved in those kinds of things, they don't realize how far down the rabbit hole they already are. And then they can't get back out. And then that's when crazy things happen to these poor people.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, don't get involved in
don't go ghost hunting. Don't go Bigfoot hunting.
It's not a good idea.
Don't look for things that are dangerous.
Right.
Put it that way.
Be aware.
Be aware.
Have a ready sword. Be prepared.
Know how to fight that if it happens, or address it.
Be like, oh, let's go out in the woods at night and
Don't.
That's inviting things. And
don't look for.
If you go looking for things, they will find you.
Yeah. Don't look for harm, because you will be harmed. Pretty simple.
And we don't have to be embarrassed. I think coming kind of to a possible close here, depending on if we want to stop. Like I had this example of being prepared, along with something that's just in everyday life. It's the owning of a firearm for home defense. We are admitting when we buy a firearm, there are evil people. There are wicked people. There are people who might try to come to my house and do bad things to my family. I have to be able to protect them and myself, so I purchased this firearm. I'm not burying my head in the sand, not buying a firearm and just saying there's no bad people, like there's nothing. That's actually really unwise to do that.
But you also don't want to be, oh, I have a gun, I'm safe. Because God's sovereign. God can let things happen.
Totally.
And someone.
But knowing how to fight back.
Someone
with
can.
That.
Absolutely, someone can walk up and shoot you in the back, and you didn't have time.
You could have had a gun held in your hand, and it still could have happened. You still could have gotten shot.
Stuff can happen. That's not your security.
No.
But being ready in case something happens where you can improve the situation. So say there's a shooting and you can stop it.
Yeah.
That's definitely preferable than more people dying.
Yeah. So you just,
yeah. You don't want to just be like, oh, well, I couldn't have a gun.
Oh, well, I didn't want to admit that there were bad people out there.
Yeah.
It's similar.
You have to be careful.
Yeah, you have to be careful about what you do, because then there is the possibility of owning a firearm.
Yeah.
You can shoot your hand, shoot your foot.
Happen.
And that's where there's always a balance in everything. For instance, this kind of stuff, you don't want to get so far deep into it that that's all you're doing. But you have to be able to recognize it.
Yeah, that you're shooting yourself in the foot. You don't want to be harming yourself.
Yeah.
Like, guns can be dangerous.
Yeah.
They can. That's the nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to find a balance where you're using it responsibly and accepting something could happen, being ready for it, but still using it safely.
Right.
So that's kind of the goal here is we want to be ready. We want to know, accept that, acknowledge stuff happens. Strange stuff happens.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's just have an open mind. Don't be one of those block walls that just is not.
It's not healthy to just shut everything down.
No,
so acknowledge stuff happens. Be ready to, if something happens, fight it. Or if someone just asks you about it, you can give them a biblical perspective. Yeah, stuff can happen. Yeah, God created this world. He created a spiritual world too. And
what's so funny is we already admit it exists.
Yeah, we admit it exists, but then when someone asks us about aliens.
What about aliens?
That's like, it's all fake. It's all made up. It's not necessarily. I mean, absolutely, some of it is. Absolutely, there are stories that are made up.
People lie, but people don't only lie.
Yeah. People make up alien stories. People make up Bigfoot stories. All that stuff happens.
Yeah.
But some stuff actually does happen, and so you have to be able to confront that without going in the deep end, without diving into it to the point where you're with them, trying to find ghosts. Trying to find Bigfoot, whatever. So there's a balance, and
by the way, I just want to state that we really like guns.
Guns.
guns are awesome.
Yeah. And just to say, guns are tools, like anything else. It depends on the user, how it's used. So, like a screwdriver, a hammer, you could hit someone in the head with a hammer. That's gonna hurt really bad. So it's not the hammer's fault. It's not the gun's fault.
It's the user.
It's the user.
So it's the same thing with this. This is good information, a good tool to use. But it depends on the user.
You have to use it responsibly.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah. So missing 411.
Yep. People are
very
missing.
Different.
Sometimes it's strange.
Very strange. Cause. It's kind of.
There's many different things it could be.
I mean, even getting into the subject of wormholes. And
that's a whole
nother topic. I kind of wish we got into that a little bit, but we'll maybe
I haven't done enough study to really go into that deep.
But yeah, wormholes. You got UFOs.
And then there's
all
also
that.
Yeah, for you guys. There's also the whole it could just be some natural we don't know about.
I mean, maybe in the Bible, you remember that account? I don't know where it's at, but the earth
just swallowed them up. I think it was Genesis,
up.
right?
When was that?
Huh? Yeah, it was
live studio audience.
Yeah.
And
it was like the people trying to rebel against Joshua and stuff. So Exodus, Numbers, something like that.
What's not a lovely sound?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they were rebelling, and so the world split open and swallowed them up.
Is that
happening?
Maybe.
There's no reason to. You can't prove it in any way, but I mean, it's happened.
I mean, it could.
It's happened before.
Like I said, there's so many.
There's so many possibilities.
There's so many different areas, so many possibilities of where this could be going.
And some things like the account I talked about, McGrogan, it doesn't seem like he was swallowed up because we found him. So there are different things that could be possible in different situations. Does it seem like he was swallowed up? Probably not, because they found him on a frozen lake, on a frozen waterfall.
Right.
The guy you were talking about, they found absolutely nothing. That's more likely than, to say that was the world swallowed him up is more plausible to say that in that case than in my case. Because
they found nothing, but it's
no proof whatsoever.
The earth didn't swallow him up and spit him up somewhere.
Yeah. They're like, I don't like that.
I think there's multiple causes.
Yeah,
multiple causes, different things. So with that said, I would like to close out today's episode with a story that kind of leans more towards the predator aspect. So with that said, thank you for watching this, and please, Follow us wherever this is going to be at. Like if
Wherever
it's on
you can find
YouTube,
it.
like and subscribe.
Yeah.
If you're on Facebook, whatever it is,
follow it.
Follow it or whatever.
We don't know where it's going to be, but wherever you can find it,
don't know.
Help us out.
So I'd like to close out with the story. Takes place in Ohio, so not too far away.
Not too far, yeah. I work in
when
Ohio.
I read about this, I was like,
Yep, I work in Ohio, so.
So anyway, Ohio. This takes place in a small town. It was in the middle of the summer. Ohio, their summers are really just kind of dreary.
Yeah.
They're just really kind of hot
and
humid.
nasty.
So there is just a small town. I'm going to leave the names of the town and the people anonymous for now. But basically, an older lady and her husband lived on this property, and one evening she decides she's going to go out and do some bow hunting. She has woods right on their property, and they were about 20 acres of woods, nothing big.
Yeah.
This was just a little hobby. She goes out there. She climbs up into her the hunting stand.
Yeah.
The hunting stand that's on this tree. She's up there, she's sitting there, and it was a great evening for hunting. I don't think she was planning on being up there for very long, and everything gets very quiet. And this kind of reminds me of what we talked about earlier, of just dead silence, like there's a predator. She's sitting there, and she almost feels like there is something in her eye, almost like you have a mote in your eye. And she goes to wipe her eye, and it doesn't go away. And it stays in the tree.
It's a blur.
It's a blurry kind of a shape. And the way she described it was it looked like shrink wrap was on the tree and was reaching over from tree to tree and was sucking into this tree. And it's just going and going and going. And she goes, the encounter lasted for about 10 minutes. 10 seconds. 10 minutes would be really
That'd be awful.
That would be awful. So it lasted for about 10 seconds. Subconsciously, she says she doesn't remember doing this, but she pulled out her phone and took a picture. And what's really strange about this is after seeing that, that's absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
She stays up there for like another 30 minutes to an hour.
Complete calm.
Yeah.
There was no nervousness,
sense of like,
no dread,
look at
nothing.
that.
It was just
let's stay up here and hunt.
Yeah.
Just weird.
Interesting.
So she stays up there for over 30 minutes to an hour, climbs back down, and instead of going inside immediately telling her husband, who is actually a scientist, and being like, there was something really weird out here in the trees.
She almost forgot about it.
Almost forgot.
Yeah.
And she almost thinks she wouldn't have remembered if her husband hadn't gotten an email from their nephew. The nephew was literally about a mile away, and he was like practicing in a band. Yeah, it was a ball stadium. They were practicing for a band. And they said they were just out there when suddenly there was this huge bright light that just came above the stadium. And it was
getting dark at that point.
Yeah,
so.
It was later in the day.
Yeah.
And it just shone there, and then it just went away. And they just thought it was all crazy.
It was just weird.
Well, then right when he said that and was reading the email, she remembered what she saw and was like, oh, I wonder if it has to do with this. She shows him the picture, and we'll kind of end with this, which is probably the most subtlest thing about this whole thing, was the file on her phone. The resolution, size, and quality was so low, it was impossible. It didn't even exist.
The phone was incapable of doing that.
And it was like she had pictures that she was taking at that moment before of herself in the stand, and then that picture, which is really weird, and then she had pictures that she took after. And it was
one
like
picture.
One picture.
Resolution, size, it's not
crazy.
The phone's not capable of doing that.
Like you would have to reprogram the phone in order for it to take
and
that
possibly
size
even get a different camera.
yeah. And if you look at the picture, it's kind of a weird picture, but you do see something blurry. But again, the resolution, the size is so bad.
Yeah.
You really don't know what you're looking at.
All blurry anyway, so.
Yeah. Just like most of the classic pictures of anything. Paranormal is always blurry. We'll have to talk about that later because there is, I think, something behind that. But so with that said, that's an interesting story that I think lends itself to more of kind of a demonic predator presence.
Yeah.
That was actually kind of cool. And just involved in a lot of other stories and things.
Yeah.
So with that, do you have any closing thoughts?
I don't think so. I think that's all.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this first ever episode for Dimensional. So that was awesome. So we had a lot of fun, and I hope you all are excited for what's to come next.
Yep.
So we'll see you next time.
See you next time.